The first box I opened under Route 17 was sealed, labeled, and logged. That part was normal. The case number was normal. The chain of custody tape was normal. The evidence tag was signed by a deputy whose name I recognized. The problem was the date. The case file was dated 6 weeks from now. Inside the box were photographs from a crime scene that had not happened yet. A kitchen floor, a broken glass, a blood pattern marked with yellow evidence numbers, and a missing person report for a woman who was still alive when I checked her name. I know she was alive because I called her office. She answered on the second ring. And while I was still holding the phone, looking at her future case file, the evidence room printer behind me started printing a new label. Case status, open. Location, Route 17 sublevel. Reviewing officer, my employee ID. Time of discovery, 11:48 p.m. That was 3 minutes in the future. Let me tell you exactly what my assignment was, because the assignment matters. It's the only part of this I can still explain. The county was closing the old evidence storage level under the Route 17 corridor. It's a sublevel, poured concrete, no windows. Built in the 70s, under what used to be the sheriff's substation, before the substation moved and the road got widened over the top of it. You get in through a stairwell, behind a chain-link cage, in a maintenance lot. The county kept it active as overflow evidence storage because it was climate stable and nobody wanted to pay to move 1,100 boxes. 1,106 boxes, according to the manifest. My job was a closure audit. 2 weeks, nights only, because the maintenance lot is active during the day. Open each sealed box only if the seal was compromised or the label was unreadable. Verify case numbers against the county system. Flag anything for destruction review, anything for retention, anything with a broken chain. Sign the manifest. Turn off the lights. Then the level gets decommissioned and filled. Simple. Boring. The kind of work they give to someone with 19 years in evidence control and no patience left for anything interesting. The box I described, the first one, I opened because its seal was compromised. The tape had split along the lid seam. That's the only reason I looked inside. Under my own procedure, an intact seal stays intact. I want that on the record. I followed procedure. The box asked to be opened. Here's what verification looked like that first night, before anything got strange in a way I couldn't file. The case number on the box was 2604117. County case numbers start with the year. This was a 26 number. The county system, when I queried it from the terminal in the sublevel's intake room, an old machine but networked, accepted the number as valid. Not no record found. Valid. Case open. Restricted detail. That happens. Restricted cases exist. What doesn't happen is a valid open case number, sitting in a sealed box, in a storage level that hadn't received new intake in 9 years. The evidence tag was signed by Deputy R. Calloway. I know Calloway. I've signed transfers with Calloway. I called the substation's night desk and asked, casually, if Calloway had run any evidence transfers to the Route 17 sublevel. The desk officer laughed. Nobody had transferred anything to Route 17 since before Calloway made deputy. The missing person report inside the box was for a woman named Marisol Vega, 41, office manager at a title company on Deerfield Road. Report dated, I'll say it plainly, 6 weeks and 2 days from the night I was standing there. The reporting party was listed as her sister. The narrative section described her failing to arrive at work. Her car in the driveway, her kitchen door unlocked. The photographs matched the report. A kitchen, a broken drinking glass on tile, a blood pattern small, low near the base of the counter marked with yellow plastic evidence tints, numbered 1 through 6. Photo log stamped with the future date. Photographer's initials I didn't recognize, so I looked up the title company. Open until 9 tax season hours. I called at 11:41 p.m. expecting a machine. She answered on the second ring. She said, "Deerfield title, this is Marisol." Tired voice. A live voice. I said I was calling from the county about a records verification and asked if everything was all right at her office. She said it was fine except the coffee machine. She laughed a little. I thanked her and hung up, and the printer behind me started up. I want to walk through the explanations I tried, because I tried them in order and each one took less time to fail than the one before it. Misdated file. A clerk fat fingers a year. A 6 becomes something else, except the date appeared in 4 places. Case file header. Evidence tag. Photo log. Missing person report in 3 different formats. 2 handwritten, 2 printed. 4 independent errors producing the same impossible date is not a typo. That explanation lasted about 90 seconds. Duplicate case number. Old cases sometimes collide with new numbering schemes. But the county system showed one case under 2604117, status open, and no legacy case under any variant. No collision, 2 minutes, training box. Departments build fake evidence kits for training. Staged photos, fictional victims. Training materials are stamped training in red on every page. County policy. And I've built those kits myself. Nothing in this box was stamped. And training kits don't use real living residents with working phone numbers. 3 minutes. And that one failed the hardest, because Marisol Vega had answered her phone. Prop or prank. Someone with sublevel access staging this for me to find. Except the access log for the stairwell door badge reader, county maintained, showed 2 entries in the past 9 years. Both mine. That week. Sealed box error. Right box, wrong contents. Some intake mix-up decades ago. Except the chain of custody tape. The part of it that was still intact was current issue county tape. The design changed 14 months ago. This box was sealed with tape that did not exist when this sublevel stopped receiving evidence. Every mundane explanation required at least one impossible ingredient. I ran out of explanations before I ran out of box. And then there was the label. The printer in the intake room was a thermal label printer, the kind that prints evidence tags and shelf labels. It hadn't been powered in years. I'd noted it as surplus on my first walkthrough. At 11:45 p.m. it printed one label unprompted and stopped. Case 2604117. Status, Open. Location, Route 17 Sublevel. Reviewing Officer, E4471. Time of discovery, 11:48 p.m. E4471 is my employee ID. I stood there and I watched my phone's clock roll from 11:45 to 11:46 to 11:47 to 11:48, holding a label that said I had discovered something at a time that hadn't arrived yet. At 11:48, nothing happened. Nothing appeared. Nothing moved. Then I understood. Nothing needed to happen. The discovery the label referred to was the label itself. At 11:48 p.m., I was standing in the Route 17 sublevel, holding it, reading it, which means at 11:48 p.m., employee E4471 discovered evidence in the Route 17 sublevel. The label wasn't predicting an event. The label was the event. Filed before it occurred. Accurate the moment the clock caught up. I peeled it off the printer and put it in my pocket, which I know broke the chain. I didn't care. I wanted one piece of this in my hand and out of the system. I didn't yet understand that my pocket was inside the system too. The second night, I came back. You might ask why. I've asked myself. The honest answer is that I've spent 19 years being the person who reconciles boxes with records. When they don't match, I don't get to walk away. It isn't courage. It's a deformity of habit. The second night, I stopped waiting for compromised seals. I pulled boxes from the same shelf run as 2604117 row K, the deepest row, farthest from the stairs, and I checked labels without opening anything. Row K held 41 boxes. 9 of them carried future dates, not all 6 weeks out. The nearest was 11 days from that night. The farthest was dated almost 14 months forward. 9 sealed boxes. Current issue custody tape. Valid case numbers the county system accepted without complaint. All of them describing intake events that had not occurred, signed by officers who had never set foot down there. I photographed every label with my personal phone. I wrote each case number in my own notebook in pen because I trust pen. Then I did the thing I'd been avoiding. I opened the 11-day box. Inside, a property crime file, a break-in at a storage facility on Corliss Avenue, photographs of a cut padlock, an emptied unit, a shoe impression in dust with a scale ruler beside it. Bagged physical evidence, the padlock itself, cut, bagged, tagged. A padlock that would be cut 11 days from now was lying in my hands, already in the bag, already labeled with the date of its own destruction. I drove to Corliss Avenue on my way home at 3 in the morning. The storage facility was there. The unit number from the file 118 was there. Its padlock was on the door, intact, brass. I stood in the dark, comparing the padlock on the door to the photo on my phone of the padlock in the bag. Same lock, same brand stamp, same scratch across the shackle. The lock was in 2 places, 11 days apart, and both of them were real. The third night, my supervisor called the sublevel's landline before I'd finished coffee. His name doesn't matter. He's a records administrator, 2 levels above me. A decent man who has survived 30 years in county service by developing an immune response to anything unusual. I had emailed him a summary the previous morning. No theories, just multiple boxes bear future intake dates. Request guidance on classification. He didn't answer the email. He called. He said, "Use the condition code, date discrepancy. Leave the observation field blank and do not describe the dates in the comments field." I started to explain that this wasn't a data problem, that there was physical evidence in those boxes, photographs, bagged items, a padlock that was currently locked to a door across town. He talked over me, not unkindly. "Discrepancies get resolved upstream," he said. "Whatever was in the boxes would be inventoried by whoever inherited them. My job was the manifest, not the contents." And here's the part I keep returning to. He wasn't threatening me. He wasn't covering anything up. He had no idea what was down there, and his voice made clear he intended never to know. He was doing what the county does with anything it can't metabolize: reduce it to a condition code and route it upstream to dissolve. I didn't argue, because I'd already realized the argument was beside the point. My problem wasn't going to be solved by any version of the audit form. The boxes were real. The padlock was real. The form was the least real thing in the building. Then I asked him one question. I asked whether anyone else had ever audited the Route 17 sublevel. There was a pause that lasted longer than the question deserved. He said the last closure audit was scheduled in 2016 and canceled. He didn't say why. He said the auditor assigned in 2016 had moved on. He used those exact words. And then he changed the subject to my timesheet. After he hung up, I searched the county directory for the 2016 auditor's name. It was still on the old assignment order, pinned inside the intake room's filing cabinet. Not in the directory. Not in the retiree roster. The name appears exactly once in the entire county system, as a case number. I didn't open that case. Not yet. Write that down as the one act of restraint I managed. Here is where the system itself started answering me. I decided to build my own record off the county's paper. I exported the 9 future case numbers from the terminal. A standard records query, results to a spreadsheet to my email. Insurance. If the boxes changed, if the labels changed, I'd have a time-stamped export showing what the system had said. The export went through. The email arrived. I opened the attachment at home the next afternoon, at my own kitchen table, in daylight which I had started to need. All 9 case numbers were there. Statuses, locations, assigned officers, all there. The dates were gone, not wrong, gone. Every date field in the export was blank. 9 cases, and every single field that would have carried a future date came out empty, while every present tense field survived. I reran the export twice from the sublevel terminal and once from my regular workstation across town. Same result. The system would show me the future dates on screen in the room live, and it would not let them leave. I tried a screenshot. The screenshot saved fine. And when I opened it, the date column was rendered as a smear of gray, like a scanner passing over wet ink. The photographs on my phone, the label photos from row K, were intact. Physical film, thermal paper, pen, and notebook. intact. Anything the county's own systems touched on the way out, scrubbed. The record wasn't hiding the future from me. It was hiding the future from everyone who wasn't standing in that room, which meant the room wanted witnesses to be local, singular, and unsupported. Which meant the room wanted witnesses like me. The fourth night, the printer ran for 6 minutes. I heard it from row K, the heat crackle of thermal paper. By the time I reached the intake room, it had produced a document, not a label. Somehow, out of a label printer, page after 4-inch wide page in a long connected strip, folding itself into the tray like something being born in segments. It was a 911 call transcript. Header block, county dispatch format, correct in every particular. Caller, Vega, Marisol. Date, the future date. Time, 6:52 a.m. I read it standing up. I'll give you the part I can't stop reciting. Dispatcher, 911, what's your emergency? Caller, there's someone in my kitchen. I can hear, I'm upstairs, I can hear glass. Dispatcher, ma'am, is your door locked? Caller, I heard the glass break. Please, dispatcher, officers are en route. Stay on the line with me. Caller, he's not moving around, he's just standing there. I can hear him standing there. How can I hear someone standing? The transcript ends mid-sentence. Not with a disconnect code, not with an arrival code. The dispatch format requires a closing code, and there isn't one. The strip just stops. And below the last line, the thermal paper is darkened, heat-marked in a band. As though the printer held its element down on the page and pressed. I called Marisol, Vega's office, the next day. I know how that sounds. I called and she answered, Deerfield title, this is Marisol, and I hung up without a word. Because there is nothing I could tell her that she could act on. What was I going to say? That I had a transcript of a call she hadn't made. That I'd seen photographs of her kitchen floor. That her case was already sealed under a highway. I did try. Indirectly, I filed an anonymous tip to the substation, suggesting extra patrols on her street starting the week before the file's date. I have no idea if it went anywhere. Tips are triaged by the same system that erases the dates. That's the mechanism, if you're looking for one. Not silence enforced by threats. Silence enforced by routing. Every channel that could carry a warning out of that room strips the warning on the way through. And what arrives on the other end is a blank field, and a man with 19 years of service sounding unwell. The fifth night, I did the thing an evidence auditor should do first, and I had been afraid to do at all. I pulled the chain of custody forms from all 9 boxes and read every line of every one. Chain of custody forms are the spine of everything I do. Every hand that touches evidence signs. Every transfer, every date, every seal. A box's whole biography. 8 of the 9 forms had a final line, the most recent custody event dated in the future. Signed by officers I could verify were real, currently employed, and had never been to the sublevel. That was consistent with everything else. Terrible, but consistent. The 9th form box dated 14 months out. The farthest one had a line in the middle, not the last line. The middle, a transfer event dated 4 months from now. Receiving initials, mine, not my employee ID this time, My initials in handwriting. I want to be precise here because precision is the only footing I have left. It was not a forgery in the way forgeries usually announce themselves. It was my initials the way I actually write them when I'm tired. The way the last stroke drops when I've signed 40 forms in a shift. Nobody forges the fatigue into a signature. I have signed that exact tired scrawl thousands of times. And I had never signed this form, and it was mine. According to that document, 4 months from now, I take custody of that box. I sign for it. The chain runs through my hands, and the chain was written before my hands got there. I sat on the concrete floor of row K for a long time with that form in my lap, and the thought I finally arrived at was not fear exactly. It was a professional observation, which is worse. The form was in order. If it crossed my desk on any normal day, I would approve it. There is nothing in county procedure that checks whether a signature was given before the signer agreed to give it. Procedure assumes time. It's the one assumption we never wrote down, because who would need to? The sixth night, there was a new label on the intake board when I arrived. The board is a cork board by the door where incoming transfers get posted. It had been empty for 9 years. I'd photographed it empty on my first walkthrough. The label read, Scheduled Intake. 1-1 Item, Route 17 Sublevel, 12:00 a.m. That night's date. I checked the stairwell door. Locked, badge log clean, my entries only. I checked the freight shutter at the far end of the level. The old vehicle transfer shutter that's been welded to its frame since before I was hired. Welded, rusted, sealed. There was no way for an intake to arrive. There was also no way for any of the rest of it, and the rest of it had arrived fine. I made a decision I'll defend to anyone. I stayed, not out of bravery, out of the auditor's deformity again. If an intake was going to occur in a facility under my closure audit, I was going to witness it and log it, because an unwitnessed intake is a broken chain. And a broken chain was the one thing left in that building that could still be my fault. I sat in the intake room with the lights on and my notebook open, and I watched the clock the way you watch a pot. At 11:58, the printer clicked once. Warming. At 11:59, the temperature in the room changed. I can't call it colder. It was more like the room concentrating. The way an office feels when everyone stops typing at once. At 12:00 exactly, nothing came through the door, and nothing came through the shutter. And when I looked back at row K through the intake window, there were 42 boxes on the shelf run I had counted, photographed, and numbered at 41. The new box was at the end of the row, sealed, current tape. Its label carried an intake time of 12:00 a.m. that night. The first past tense, true, accurate label I had seen in that room all week. The room had performed an intake. No hands, no transfer, no doors, just a scheduled event and then the event's evidence in that order, which I was beginning to understand was the only order the room knew. Case number on the new box, 270003. Third case of a year that hadn't started. I did not open it that night. I logged it, item present, seal intact, condition code entered, nothing more. And I went up the stairs and stood in the maintenance lot until the sky got light, listening to Route 17 over my head, the early trucks rolling south, ordinary weight moving over an ordinary road, with a room underneath it that had learned how to receive things without anyone bringing them. I took one night off. I told myself it was to think. What I actually did was sit at my kitchen table with my notebook and reconcile everything I had the way I'd reconcile any manifest. 9 future boxes, now 10. 1 transcript. 1 label with my ID. 1 custody form with my initials 4 months early. Every item consistent with every other item. No contradictions anywhere except with the calendar. That's what broke my last resistance, I think. Not fear. The internal consistency. Bad evidence contradicts itself. This didn't. This was the cleanest evidence set I had handled in 19 years. And the only thing it violated was the direction of time. And I had already seen that the county's systems quietly agreed to overlook that violation on export. So I went back. 7th night. I badged in at 9:14 p.m. I wrote it down because by then I trusted my pen more than the reader, and I walked straight to row K and pulled box 270003. The seal was intact. I broke it myself on camera. I set my phone up on the shelf across the aisle and recorded the whole opening, narrating each step aloud like a proper evidence review. If nothing else survived, I wanted my own voice describing my own hands. The top item was the intake label, duplicated inside the lid. Standard procedure. 1 item became 4 items once the box was open, each in its own sealed bag, each tagged. Bag 1 held a county access record, a printed badge reader history for the sublevel stairwell door. It listed my entries for the audit, all correct, all matching my notebook, and then it continued. Entries past that night. Entries for weeks I had not lived yet. The last entry on the page was an entry-only event. Badge in 4 months out, 11:52 p.m. No corresponding exit. The log simply ended there, with me inside. Bag 2 held a personal item, my spare reading glasses. The pair I keep in my car's glove box, with the chip in the left lens from when I dropped them in a parking garage in 2019. I walked up to the lot right then and checked my car. The glasses were in the glove box where they always are. I came back down and they were also in the bag, chip and all, tagged with an item number and the future date. I put the bag down and did not touch it again. 2 padlocks, 2 pairs of glasses. The room does not take things from the present. It takes them from later and stores them early. Bag 3 held a printed statement. Witness statement form, county format, signature block at the bottom. The narrative section was typed, first person, and it described calmly, procedurally, in language I recognized, because it is my language, the discovery of a sealed, future-dated evidence box in the Route 17 sublevel. It described the compromised tape, the kitchen photographs, the phone call, the printer. It described this. The statement I would give if anyone ever asked me what happened, worded the way I would word it, dated 4 months forward. The signature block was empty. It is the only blank field I found in that room all week, and I understood it was blank the way a form on your desk is blank. It was waiting for its turn in the queue. It was assigned. Bag 4 held a chain of custody form, not for an item. The header field where the item description goes did not list an object. It listed a name and an employee ID. My name, E4471. The custody chain below it was mostly filled in. Collected at Route 17 sublevel, transferred to row K retained, retained, retained. A biography of transfers, written in the same rotation of real deputies' hands, receiving and releasing me down a column of dates that ran 14 months deep. The item condition field said, intact. The disposition field said, hold for case. I stood in row K holding a custody form for myself, and the thing I felt was not terror. It was recognition. I have written 1,000 of these. I know exactly what this form means better than anyone else who could ever have opened that box. It means the item is in the system. It means the item's location is known. Its transfers are scheduled. Its retention is authorized. It means the item does not go anywhere the chain does not already describe. I want to be clear about what I did next because I was not passive and I will not pretend I was. I photographed everything. I carried my notebook, my phone, and the transcript strip up the stairs. I mailed physical copies to 3 addresses, including this one. I filed the closure audit with every observation documented, in pen, on paper, hand-delivered, so that nothing digital could strip it in transit. I called Marisol, Vega's sister's number from the missing person report and left a message telling her to check on Marisol the first week of next month. Every day, in the mornings, I did every active thing a person in my position could do, and I logged each one. And I am telling you all of it now, out loud off their paper. But I also went back down before I left. Because an auditor closes his rows, and on the intake board where the scheduled intake label had been, there was a new label, one item, Route 17 sublevel. The date was the date from the badge log, the entry with no exit. Item description, E4471. Condition on arrival, to be determined. I stood there and understood, finally, what I had been auditing for 2 weeks. Not a storage level, an intake process. Crimes come to that room before they happen because the room does not distinguish between an event and its evidence. And it does not distinguish between evidence and people. Deputies who sign, auditors who count, women who answer on the second ring. Everything that touches a case is part of the case, and everything that is part of a case gets a tag, a bag, a row, a date. I have 4 months according to the paperwork. I intend to use them loudly, but I've reconciled enough manifests to know what a completed chain looks like. And mine was sealed in a box on row K before I ever badged in. The room had already filed me before I understood what the evidence was.